All right, so in my previous video, I talked about how I had acquired this McIntosh MPM 4000 VU meter unit, which is actually meant for car stereo, but I actually got it so that I would be able to hook it up to my McIntosh MI75 monoblocks. And in that video, I also showed how I had to navigate the plethora of cables and connections on this unit, and through some trial and error, I was able to successfully pair it up with the ICO HF81 tube amplifier. And I had hypothesized that if I could get this unit to work with the ICO, it should work with any amplifier. So today we will be doing exactly that with this Marantz receiver. Now, if you recall, my original intention in acquiring this VU meter unit, it was so that I would be able to rack mount it because I'm planning a project around my MI75 monoblocks where I'm planning to rack mount them, and I thought a VU meter addition there would be great. So I was hoping to achieve something like this, but due to the sheer nature of how small this unit is and how small the VU meters are, it would end up looking something like this. So I've all but abandoned that idea, so it's not going to go on a rack mount. If I do decide to keep this unit, it would most likely end up next to my DAC or on top of my DAC because of its smaller form factor and footprint. And just looking at how small these VU meter units are, I couldn't help but start calling them and referring to them as baby VU meters. And that reminded me, I have one other audio gear in my collection that has the baby prefix, and that would be this Marantz receiver. Early on in my audiophile journey, well before I got into tubes, I had acquired this particular receiver as the Marantz Model 2010, also known as Baby Marantz because of a smaller form factor. It's not the size of the regular 22 series Marantz receivers. Also, the 2010 here means that it's only got 10 watts, arguably the lowest powered receiver in the Marantz receiver lineup. So although this is a small receiver, it's a wholesome receiver. It's got everything in it. I won't digress on that. I will probably make another video documenting my experience, my journey with the solid state receivers, mostly Marantz, where I went through a phase before I got into tube amplifiers of testing and A/Bing and finding the right solid state receiver for my setup, where I started with the lowest watts and successively upgraded and doubled the watts and experienced the headroom and everything else that's supposed to come with bigger, powerful receivers. So I'll make another video on that journey. So coming back to this unit, I did receive some feedback and questions on my previous video around, hey, you showed us the wiring diagram, you showed us how you ran into some trouble, eventually we were successful, but you never showed us how you got it to work. So for you technical folks, I'll cut to the back and show you how I've set this up, and then we'll come back and play some music and watch the VU meters. So let's start in the back here. Let me bring back the wiring diagram from the manual. If you recall, the white and the white black and the gray black are our left and right channel, positive and negative. These are the four that should be connected to the speaker terminals on the receiver or amplifier. And that's what I've done here. So as you know, a lot of receivers have the capability of running two sets of speakers, powering two sets of speakers, usually labeled as speaker A or B, and in some cases, like in this unit, it's called main and remote. So I have plugged my main speakers, the Tannoy GRFs, to the main, and I have the VU meter plugged in here on the remote section, and I'm running them both together. So if you recall from my previous video, I could have easily double tapped and plugged these up here, and that would have been fine too. And also, ideally, the VU meter unit expects a 4 ohm connection, but an 8 ohm should be fine as well. It won't be exact, the needle reading, but it's for aesthetics purposes anyway. Nobody's using this for recording purposes, so we should be fine there. Now, as far as the cables go, the white and the white black here, as you can see, is connected to one channel, and then the gray and the gray black is connected to the other channel. So it's as simple as that. Just hooked it up to the speaker terminals on the back of the receiver. Now going back to the wiring diagram for the power section, remember we did the speaker terminals with these 4 wires, so these are taken care of. These were to the amp, and then we had to figure out how to connect these 4 wires, and that's where I was having trouble and had to do some trial and error. Now if you recall, we've got a positive and a negative coming from the power output, the wall wart, and I had to figure out how to connect these 4 wires. And initially, because it said this was supposed to be connected to the vehicle chassis, I was connecting this black wire to the amp chassis, and I was trying to figure out between these 3 wires how to connect them to the positive and the negative from the power supply. And when I tried hooking one of them up to positive, the other to the negative, and vice versa, I was getting different results. I was getting the VU meters to light up, but not the Mac logo. When I switched it around, the Mac logo lit up, but the VU meters light went out, and overall the unit was not even functioning. So after a bit of trial and error and just looking at all of these wires and leads, I figured out that all of these actually need to be connected to the positive, and the black, instead of the chassis, it actually goes to the negative on the power supply. So that's the configuration. Let me show you the wires here, how I have done it. So for power, I'm using this wall wart that's 12 volts and it's at 1 amp. That's what the VU meter is expecting. So the output is 12 volts at 1 amp. And it ends with this connector here, this round connector, but I have this adapter here which lets me connect these bare wires. So there's the positive and negative terminal, and it works great for my application and test purposes. Here we have all the cables in the back of the unit, and if you recall, there's the gray ones and the white ones that I already showed you how to hook it up to the amplifier. So these 4 cables are your left and right channel that connect to the speaker terminal on the amp. Let me put this away. And now let's start with the black one here. This is the one I showed in the diagram. It says connect to the chassis, and I was making the mistake of connecting this one to the amp chassis. This one connects to the negative from the power supply. And then all of these here connect to the positive. And that's where I was making a mistake. I was trying to figure out the positive negative between these, but these are all supposed to be connected to the same positive output from the power supply. And if you notice, all of these, the orange, the yellow, and the blue, have these additional connectors, these splitters or splicers or whatever they're called, so that they can be linked together. So you can connect the blue one to the yellow. So now it's the same line, same wire, and now the yellow to the orange. So now they're all essentially conducting the same flow, current, positive, negative, whatever you connect it to. So this goes to the positive, and this goes to the negative from the power, and that was it. That's what I figured out after some trial and error. Those 4 wires to the amplifier, these 2 to the power supply, and you have the VU meter working. All right, so I'll end this video by playing some music and watching those needles bounce.